Hey guys, quick little note about the podcast today before we start. We pre-recorded it. We're trying to do some different things, see what works, see what doesn't. And we also pre-recorded it when I was on about 23 hours without any sort of sleep. So I was tired, a little cranky, and we have some demonstrably, I don't even know if that's a word, but horribly, horrifically bad takes in here. Um, we wanted to keep them in because the podcast, as well as just being something fun for us, is also a way to document our political growth. And hindsight is always 2020, especially when you're doing something kind of semi-live and you don't have much of an idea of what you're talking about, which is the both of us. So we also did a couple of segments that weren't really working. We tried to do a tier list, and in hindsight, that was kind of boring. And at one point in there, the audio starts cutting out, and that's when we went to the tier list. So instead, we just cut out the tier list and went straight to the "What are we doing this week" segment. So that's all. There's construction going on in my house. That's what you hear. But that's everything. Hope you enjoy the Zero Budget Podcast, not live. Welcome, everybody, to the worst episode of the Zero Budget Podcast. Not live.
I think you're too hard on yourself.
See, I was thinking if we set up every episode as the worst episode, then we can only go up.
I don't think that's how that works, but alright.
Like, if we start off setting the low expectations, and then the expectations only roll up from there. Are you feeling how my mind works, Matthew? You gotta tap into your primal instincts in order to capture the essence of a great podcast.
Yeah, this spaghetti slaps.
Welcome, everybody, to the newest episode of the Zero Budget Podcast, not live. We are not live, but I'm still your host, Japade Singh, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Matthew Hanks. Say hello, Matthew.
Hello.
So, as you can tell, we're not live. Why did we decide not to go live? We just figured there was no benefit in it. We weren't gaining anything. So instead, we decided to do it when I was sleep deprived and Matthew was eating his lunch.
Mm-hmm.
And we thought that was a much better avenue to take it than live. Because, you know, live has no benefits.
Also, we have a lot more freedom when we pre-record as well.
We can just kind of do it whenever we want to instead of sticking to Saturday at 3.
And there's a lot less dead air, theoretically.
Yeah, theoretically.
Theoretically speaking.
We'll always have dead air, Matthew. That is the Zero Budget promise. You come to this podcast expecting dead air, and by golly, you will get it.
You're getting dead air.
Alright, well, you know how we start these things. How was your week? We're filming this on Wednesday, so it's been like 4 days since our last podcast. So how have these 4 days been for you? Maddie?
It's Matthew, by the way, not Maddie.
Maddie boy.
Anyways, kind of stressful. Mason just told me that 3 out of my 5 classes will now be online instead of in person.
Nice.
So that's cool. I still have not gotten my financial aid information in yet. Have not, even though this were due a month ago. But they haven't told me anything about it. So I don't care.
Very good. Very good, Matthew, indeed. Buddy, my friend, my lover.
How was yours?
My confidant. My week was, you know, I didn't really do much since Saturday. I've been playing The Last of Us, which I guess we can talk about in the end segment that I have now decided will forever be a segment. Uh,
Hmm.
yeah, I guess we can talk about it more then, but pretty much I've been keeping up with The Last of Us. I've been watching more political videos, so I'm now based. Based on what? I don't know, but I'm based.
You're based.
Whatever that means, I am that. I have decided. Another thing that I have decided is I'm the ultimate final say on all things, always. Um, so anything that we talk about on the podcast, it all has to go through me.
All right.
There's the dead air that we were talking about. You'll always get dead air.
You always get that air.
So, what are we talking about this week? Matty boy.
So I have some fun election update stuff. Let me pull it up here. I should probably pull this up beforehand, admittedly.
You probably should have, dude. We pre-recorded this, and you still can't come fucking prepared. It's not like we were on like a time crunch. We had all this time.
Anyways,
we could have done absolutely
I
anything.
have the information now.
Well, congratulations. Oh
Thank you.
God.
So I use 538, which is a pretty good source for averaging out polls, and they generally do a pretty good job at taking out bias, especially since they were very motivated by 2016 to update their shit, and they did. So I use them as a good placeholder, and right now, because the country is less on fire, I guess it's a lot more like it feels like smoke now, truly, than like a big fire. But Trump's approval rating is doing anything but going down. I mean, like disapproval rating. Currently, like at the moment of recording, his disapproval rating on average is about 55%, and his approval rating is on average at 41%.
That would be awesome if he won by a majority, but he didn't. So I don't know what to make of that.
Well, what I've learned is that the polls were not technically inaccurate in the 2016 election.
Oh.
Because, I mean, Hillary was only polling about 3 points ahead Trump nationally speaking.
Mm-hmm.
And she won about 3% more of the popular vote than Trump did. So it's not inaccurate, technically. What was inaccurate is where the states they polled. You know, Hillary did well, yes. Just not in the states that it mattered. Yeah, I mean, she can pull in all the California and New York voters, but if people in Michigan don't like her, that doesn't matter.
It's so weird to me how people like defend the democratic system when time and time again, or not the democratic system, the American democratic system, when the popular vote didn't win. Like, isn't that the whole point? Supposedly, isn't that the whole point?
You can always, it's always the argument just like, well, then what happens to people in smaller states? Because generally speaking, the larger the population, the more democratic they are.
No, but we're just talking about popular vote, period.
Yeah.
Then Hillary should have won. If we're just talking about majority rule.
Yeah. To be fair, I'm not a huge fan of the Electoral College myself.
Yeah.
I think it needs to be massively reformed. In my humble opinion, it should be not a winner-takes-all system with states.
Yeah.
Because, that does disencourage even conservatives in like places like California and New York, where those states are going to always be safe blue,
Did you don't watch Hassan Minaj, but I do, and that's why I'm based.
I see.
But, yeah, so he talked about the rank, what's it called, rank choice or something?
Yes, I know about that.
Yeah, it's literally just like you rank your candidates, and then they go from the majority based on that. And it's like we run like school elections based on that, and that seems to work pretty well. But we can't. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, France. I think France does that, if I'm not incorrect, when selecting their president.
Mm.
Uh, and I mean, it generally, the only issue with it, it always comes down to just two parties. It does at least give third parties a chance, but like, I think there is something inherent in people who are, not always politically savvy. Your average citizen, basically.
Yeah.
A lot of them are. I mean, a lot of them actually are single issue voters. They just want to get one thing done. That they care about.
Yeah,
The
but
only issue
I
is a
feel
lot
like
of
it makes. I feel like it makes primaries and local elections more important.
Yeah.
Because,
No, you're not wrong,
yeah.
but people don't see that. It's not even like their fault necessarily. They're just not very. They probably just weren't educated on like the importance of more local elections.
Yeah.
I will always say that state elections are way more important than federal elections will be. Maybe unless it's like a senator election.
Makes sense.
Because look at Virginia. Virginia was, at least with its own house, was like red for like forever until like literally last election. And look how much progressive shit they passed.
I mean, this whole pandemic really has been instrumental in proving that local elections matter so much more than federal. Because it's however your local government facilitated how you were going to carry out COVID lockdown restrictions or whatever. Like, you look at the difference between a state like Florida and a state like New York, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you had swapped that leadership, we would be in a very different state right now.
Or I mean, just look at a lot of the southern states that reopened and look at Virginia, that has had a very slow reopening.
Yeah.
Virginia has seen some of the lowest hospitalization death rates in its time with COVID,
Yeah.
So it's just kind of like it. And I also, another thing that's kind of emphasized local leadership is the whole Black Lives Matter stuff, because Trump was spouting this like authoritarian crybaby nonsense, but most of the local leaders are just like, nah, bro, we're mostly chill.
Yeah.
Mostly.
Yeah, that got a lot of people scared. And I mean, like, to some extent, he has followed through, which is even more scary.
Truly, the only place he really has, like, authority to really flex is, like, D.C.
D.C. Yeah.
He can't send the army into, like, Virginia or stuff like that.
Yeah, he, I was, like, reading up to prepare for today, and, there was something saying that he called in the National Guard to defend some of the Confederate statues.
Oh yeah,
in, like, DC.
And then he brought up like the Veteran Statue Act.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, I'm gonna jail you for 10 years.
I really don't get what everyone's fascination with the Confederacy is, other than racism. Like, there's
like in the South.
Just generally, like, there's no conceivable reason for you to be flying the Confederate flag or memorializing Confederate soldiers or generals or leaders or anything of the sort other than pure racism. Because, I mean, you look at heritage, the Confederacy did not last long. The Confederacy was a very short time period in Southern heritage, so that can't be it. You look at, it's a symbol of you can't step on me. There was this fucking high school debate thing. Have you seen it? Do you know what I'm talking about? Yeah.
Oh, the douche senior who's just like, it was showing that you can only push us so far.
Yeah, fuck that kid. And then there's that one actually smart kid that they never let speak,
who was probably a little bit on the spectrum. Definitely
Not
was on
for
the
me
spectrum.
to
I don't care. Hey,
whoa.
Hey.
So you got that whole
No,
shit, right? But that's literally what the American flag stands for.
Yeah.
And then you got the whole fucking, what is it? There's a third thing that I'm not thinking of here. You can't erase history, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you can't erase history, as if, that's why I fly the Nazi flag. It's because I want to remember. Duh.
It's kind of funny, because even most German nationalists don't even fly the Nazi flag. They fly the German imperialist flag.
It's so weird, bro. And they lost.
Yeah.
They literally lost. I don't know what else. They lost, and they were traitors to America. So I don't get how you can fly the Confederate flag and the American flag next to each other. And also, that wasn't even the flag that the Confederates flew. It's just a flag that was adopted in the name of racism and white supremacy during the Civil Rights era. It's
complicated.
I am
Not really.
based.
I think their mindset is complicated.
I don't think it's complicated. I think the mental gymnastics they do to justify
That's what I just said.
Complicated. You said their mindset. Their mindset is simple.
Jesus Christ.
They're simple mind cucks.
Anyways,
like I said, I'm based, so you can't get.
I'm curious because I know this actually has some real tension in the left. Is what to do with the statues?
Tear those bitches down, bro.
Well, but after that fact. Because, I mean, some people say put it in a museum. Some say destroy them all. And then, I mean, there's me who's like, maybe keep like a couple important ones, maybe.
If it's a statue, fuck it. If it's a statue,
I think
we don't need the statues. If it's something like the slave block downtown, I think that is like a historical artifact. Where it's like, maybe you don't keep it in the same spot,
but
move it to a museum.
It is important to show how far we've come.
Yeah. But if it's just some statue erected during like 1967 to show the black people to stay in their place, tear that shit down, bro. Who the fuck cares?
I saw an interesting video by a historian who lives in New Orleans, and he was kind of ranking the statues on how racist they are.
That should be a tier list.
It was funny because like he ranked through 4. 3 of them were like very racist, but one of them apparently was like not morally ambiguous. It was like he like described it as kind of just like they should have known better, but it had like good intentions in like the sense of like it was meant for unity of some sort. I guess it was a Robert E. Lee statue. I don't know. He explained the history. It made sense.
I don't buy it. A lot of this shit was put up in the Civil Rights era. Like,
well, no, that one was built right after Lee's death. Yeah, what do you mean? What? No,
I don't know. Just generally, like most of like modern racist apologists get the basis of their arguments from Civil Rights era shit.
I mean, like, yeah.
And like a lot of the statues that were up, a lot of the same like behaviors have followed through. That not started, but kind of transformed to what they are now during the Civil Rights era. So I don't know. I don't know, to keep up one of these statues of like a literal traitor to the state, it's weird.
I think it is important to at least put one in the museum, even just like in a civil rights museum, to be like, this is kind of like what they use as a tool.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, I mean, just like, I think it is important to even recognize the cultural history of it. You know, you don't have to put in like, maybe you could put in like the U.S. National History Museum, but like something like that, you know, or hell, maybe even make an exhibit of this time period and put up one of those statues as an example of that.
Yeah.
So, I think we got very, very off like original topic.
Yeah. I just don't like this whole like southern, quote unquote southern mindset of like they come up with so many excuses to try to be like, hey, it's not racist, even though the only reason that the South seceded was to keep their slaves, which is something they explicitly stated.
Yeah. It was very interesting because I grew up in very southern Georgia. Well, I spent 2 years there, but it was like an important 2 years, I guess. And it was kind of interesting when we did learn about the Civil War. Maybe it was because we were in a more liberal part of southern Georgia because we lived right next to a university. Mm-hmm. So a lot of the teachers were actually from that university. So a lot of them kind of like teaching like, yeah, like they didn't teach a lot of the like, let's say, northern aggression. The northern aggression kind of like version of it. I don't know. But you can kind of tell like some of the children probably later on maybe learn differently, to say the least.
Mm.
The good thing I only lived there for 2 years. It was terrible. Uh,
Yeah.
so
Well.
I have some. So kind of going back to like the main point, I have some very interesting election news. Um, Very interesting,
Pray tell.
especially. So Biden really has like a chance to like kind of sweep. Um,
Cool.
yeah, I mean Orange Man though.
Yeah.
So here's
depressing.
here are some of the interesting polls. So Michigan right now, Biden is crushing with about 8 polls in. 538 has Biden up by 7.6 points. And I mean this was a state Trump won by like a couple thousand votes at most. So seeing Biden just like womp Trump in that state is crazy. Same thing with Wisconsin. Biden currently is polling 6.2 points ahead. Arizona, Biden is polling 3.3 points ahead. Biden is polling 2.5 points ahead in Florida, a half a point in North Carolina, and a tenth of a point in Pennsylvania. And now here are some states that Trump is not winning so hard, to say the least. Georgia, Trump is only polling a point ahead. And in Texas, Trump is only polling a point and a half ahead. So there is, I don't think Texas will flip, but there's a real possibility that places like Arizona and Florida will flip, which have been pretty strong Republican strongholds for the past 20 years. I mean, excluding Obama's original 2008 election. So.
Yeah, I mean, cool.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think there's a couple issues I find with all this. One of them is that Biden is the candidate.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think I have to elaborate further on that. But another is I don't like the rhetoric that Biden is like surefire victory or something like that, because that was the same rhetoric that was being spouted, albeit harder, in 2016, which is why more people weren't inclined to vote. Like, I would rather have people think, like, honestly, like, it's strange, but I would rather have people think, like, Trump is going to win.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, they're more inclined to go. And
really, here's the issue. I mean, like, I get it, but here's my argument against it. The difference between Biden and Hillary, and it's something that I kind of didn't see until like very long into the primary session, is that really Biden is not hated. He really is. He has way less scandals. But I mean, they tried to do the Hunter Biden thing, but that clearly did not have much of an effect. You know, while Biden, yes, doesn't have much enthusiasm, he has the anti-Trump enthusiasm, which is pretty strong right now, admittedly. Yeah. So it's kind of. I mean, you saw the Tulsa rally. You know.
Yeah.
Trump's base is like not buying his shit anymore, you know?
Yeah.
Trump may try to throw all this culture war stuff at them, but that's not what they're caring about, you know? They really are scared about the unemployment and the possible second part of the Great Recession. You know, they don't care that some statues are getting taken down, really, you know? Maybe, I imagine a good portion of them are, but, you know, that's not like their number one.
Yeah. I mean, but doesn't it just fucking
4.
suck that we live in a world right now where we're like, we're going to elect one world leader solely based on our hatred of another?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's just how the punches roll, unfortunately.
Sucks, man. I don't know. It's just, like, recently, obviously, it's probably just the fact that we're older now and we're able to, like, be more perceptive of the world around us.
Mm-hmm.
But it seems like recently it's just becoming more and more clear that we're living in a broken, like, deeply broken system that, like, allows something like Trump v. Biden to happen. When, like, it seems like the majority of the country doesn't want either of these clowns, just like it seemed like the majority of the country didn't want Clinton or Trump. And yet here we are.
Yeah, but like, I mean, Biden is at least promising to do some leftist stuff. One of his bigger one is student loan debt and possible like free college. Which I mean, like, listen, if he actually does it, I'll be impressed. you know.
Yeah.
And like I think as you said one time, like you were worried about the Supreme Court.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. It's like we know in the next 4 years. I'm sorry to say it, Ruth Bader Ginsburg is not going to last.
Yeah, she's either gonna unfortunately pass or she's gonna retire. I think
she's not gonna retire. Yeah. She's going to pass while forcing everyone to vote unanimously on something. I don't think she's gonna last for the next 4 years. And there's a couple other ones who are looking real old and disgusting.
Yeah.
And then Trump already said he's basically like bragging. He's like, "Hey, I got my shit ready to go. Come at me." So I don't know. That's the only real reason. Hold it out
for another year.
Yeah, and I mean we've seen with like some of the Supreme Court decisions, like what was the one they made recently about LGBT discrimination?
You couldn't discriminate against LGBT people at workplaces.
Yeah, that wasn't as unanimous as it should have been.
It was 6-3. I mean, it's not unanimous, but that's pretty good for even a conservative court.
Yeah, I know, but if we're thinking, okay, some of those judges, or some of those justices are probably going to fizzle out in the next few years, and then you got Trump with his laundry list ready to go. You know what I mean? Like that 6-3, could get tipped real soon. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, admittedly, with Supreme Court decisions, they've rarely ever been unanimous. I think the most times they were unanimous was like much earlier in the country's history.
Yeah.
As even like prior to Civil War, they weren't unanimous anymore. They're kind of more close to the 5-4 decisions.
Yeah.
Or 6. So I mean, 6-3 to see in a modern political era is pretty good. I mean, even though like the DACA decision probably won't last very long. I mean, it is what it is,
It is what it is.
It is what it is. I mean, because, yeah, you get it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think it's really I think what you did bring up a fair point. It's just, like, probably don't underestimate Trump.
Yeah.
But here is really the big difference. Trump in 2016 really was like an outsider, at least perspective-wise,
Mm-hmm.
But I think a lot of people have woken up to is that over the 4 years, he really isn't that much different. Everything he's kind of worse.
I still don't think it's enough, though. I think his base is still his base.
I'm saying, look at the Tulsa rally.
I think they even at the Tulsa rally, bro, they popped because he drank some water. Like his base is his base, and
the only issue is his base is shrinking, and we see that.
What do you mean?
We're seeing that in the polling data that his base is shrinking.
Yeah,
we've seen it personally.
But the strength of that base...
It doesn't matter how excited your base is. Your base can be 95% ready to vote for you. But if it's only like 3% wide, that doesn't matter.
We're talking about a margin that's a lot wider than just 3%. Like at this point...
obviously.
At this point, if you support him, you're with him all the way. You know what I mean? Like, at this point in the country's history, with everything that he's done... Not even in the past 3 years, but in the past 3 months, because he's been his worst. If you're with him now, you are with him till the end of the line. So that base of, like, say you said 40%, say 90% of those are going to go to the polls, which is probably a little high, but for the sake of the argument, that base is strong, and I think that's what we have to worry about. Like, this election is still competitive.
Well, here... it's competitive, that's correct. I would not be shocked by any outcome by this election. I'm going to say that now. If Trump landslide, I'll be shocked. If Biden landslides, I'll be shocked. If it's Biden's close, like if he like barely scratches like 290, I'll be shocked. If Trump barely gets 290, I'll be shocked. Nothing is like going to like not surprise me.
Yeah.
But I think it is kind of. I mean, literally, the polls tell. Trump is losing in some key red states. Especially if places like Arizona and Florida make mail-in ballots like more accessible. It's over. Because the only reason why Florida stays red is because, you know, the Hispanic Latino population has a harder time voting compared to the old white people.
Those old white people.
Those white people.
They love their voting. They absolutely.
But also the thing is, Biden polls really well with old people.
Yeah, he's a geezer.
Mainly because he probably is old. Yeah. Well, he kind of shows his oldness better, if that makes sense.
100%. He says words like Jack.
And like malarkey, you know.
Yeah, no
malarkey. You'll never catch Trump saying malarkey.
Not a damn malarkey on that man.
Yeah. And it's kind of thing, Biden is kind of more...
Biden is like American old.
Yeah. He is kind of like a classic American, which old people love.
Yeah.
And I think even I would argue some old people kind of see him like a JFK kind of esque figure.
God, that makes me so sad.
It's sad, but if that's what it takes to get them to vote for Biden,
JFK,
I'll take it.
JFK, who
just like an old. I imagine they see him as like an older JFK.
That's so disgusting.
Yeah, it is a little bit, but it is what it is.
JFK, who was like not a champion of civil rights, but supported it. Versus
a pretty good supporter.
Yeah, versus Biden, who said if you don't know whether or not to vote for him, you're not black.
Or who wrote the crime bill in the 90s.
Oh, God.
Oh, my God.
We're fucked. Hey. Whatever the outcome is, we are fucked for the next 4 years.
Well, here's always my kind of thought about Biden. While I really don't like him, I do think he'll at least put competent people in charge.
Yeah,
he won't have Jared Kushner running the White House.
Yeah, his administration, or the people who are rumored to be a part of his administration, is looking really competent.
Yeah,
him not so much. Kind of why, and his vice president maybe not so much.
As long as he honestly doesn't if he fixes the things that Trump did and then didn't do anything else.
Yeah,
I'm fine.
I'm fine. His vice president is going to be Kamala Harris.
Probably.
That's one of the bigger names thrown out there.
I forgot a name. Something Rice.
I don't know who you're talking about.
Yeah, I forgot. I'll just call her Mrs. Rice because I know her last name.
Wonderful.
But yeah, I think you're allowed to be optimistic and look at the current polling data and be like, hey, yeah, there's even kind of a theory. It's not like a strong theory that Mitt Romney may actually poll pretty well in Utah as like a write-in candidate. Because Mitt Romney right now, I think, is very popular in Utah.
Who the fuck cares about Mitt Romney? Who the fuck
Italians?
Is like... Who's like, who my guy is for 2024? 2020?
Mitt Romney.
Mitt fucking Romney.
Yeah, so I think... And I still will support people who decide not to vote in the presidential race, as long as they vote for everything else,
Yeah, I keep circling around on that. I don't know. Right now, I'm like, in the mood that I'm in right now, I'm like, if you don't vote, fuck you. Because I started thinking about, Supreme Court, and like, okay, yeah, we'd be fucked with Biden, but we'd be significantly more fucked with Trump.
Yeah.
And, like, his response to COVID and BLM, it's just, and with social media and suppression of free speech, it's all absolutely dog shit awful.
I still think it's like, but like you mentioned, like Biden is still Biden, if you want to protest the system that put Biden here,
Yeah.
Like,
and I imagine the worst thing Biden would do is like act like an Obama, where like he says nice things, but then he still like bombs the Middle East.
Yeah.
Which, whatever, they all bomb the Middle East.
Yeah,
Biden's not going to stop.
Yeah. You mentioned actually suppressing free speech. I'm not. Did you watch anything from the Tulsa rally?
I watched a couple of goofs and gaffes.
But did you watch anything that was like policy?
I didn't watch anything of substance.
Well, Trump made a claim that if Americans, they were talking about then some protesters taking down a George Washington statue and wrapping an American flag and burning the flag. And he was just like, if they burn the flag, they'll get a 1-year minimum sentence. I'm telling you, folks. So he legitimately just threatened free speech.
Yeah, remember when America tried that? And then the Supreme Court was like, no. Bad government.
No. You can't do that. So I mean, whilst I know nothing would happen, even if you did an executive order, they would just rule it unconstitutional instantly.
Bro, I learned that we were allowed to burn the American flag in 6th grade.
Yeah, in whenever we took civics class. Yeah.
That was one of the first things was hello, welcome to civics. You're allowed to burn the American flag. That would be on the SOL. Yeah. That was the whole class.
That's the whole class. But I mean, it's the mindset of itself though that's scary, and that also people cheered that on.
It's nothing new. It's nothing that we haven't seen from him before.
Yeah.
You look at his response to Kaepernick and the boys, the gang kneeling. You look at his response to Chaz and Chop, which I know we wanted to get into a bit later. I don't
think we got time to go into Chaz.
Dude, we got all the time in the world. Whatever, dude. You look at his response to any form of dissent against him, and it's always shut it down.
Was Kaepernick during his presidency?
Yeah.
It was 2017, right?
Yeah, that was during his presidency.
Yeah.
I mean, they were still kneeling.
Yeah.
And he was always yeah, that was I think that was 2017. And he kept saying hey, I don't like it.
I don't like it.
NFL, you better stop that.
Come get your boy.
Better get your boy. Or I'm gonna get your boy.
Get in prison. Minimum 1 year. I actually kind of want to talk about Trumpism for a little bit, and kind of how similar he is to. It's very similar to Stalinism and that cult of personality that still kind of is true to this day, even in Russia. People still really like Stalin, mainly because Stalin forced them to like him. I mean, it's kind of a lot of the same shit kind of rings true, where obviously not even the majority of Americans don't think that Trump is invaluable. I would say even a good majority say he is very valuable. But I mean, his base very much thinks he's very invaluable, or at least his flaws are so minor that it's irrelevant.
Yeah.
We knew a person personally like that,
Yeah.
But I use him as an example of why Trump's. I use him as an example of why Trump's base only strategy is just not going to work, because while his base, yes, they cheer at the cultural stuff, the cultural war stuff, it's very 2016. 2016 was I would say the peak of the culture war, because we kind of had nothing else to really worry about, honestly. I mean, the economy was doing fine. There was no real international threats, maybe besides North Korea. The biggest thing is maybe global warming at the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can talk about Confederate statues getting taken down, or the Confederate flag and stuff, and that could actually be a real debate, But now, COVID's still going to be a thing, even till election day. Police reform / Black Lives Matter stuff is going to be a thing till election day. I would be shocked if the Biden campaign did not bring it up, especially since Biden himself went to protest.
Yeah.
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 I mean, so it's not going to the unemployment is estimated to be around 20%. Real unemployment as well, not even the official unemployment. So this is what it would actually probably is, and that's probably going to be lasting until election day. The stock market is going to crash, even though it's doing mostly fine right now. So I mean, these are going to be things. That's kind of why I'm saying kind of wait to see how Trump's polls do, maybe in August after the conventions.
Yeah, anything can change at any time. I mean, we saw that in 2016.
maybe COVID will be a miracle. No way, not going to happen. But you never know at this point. Maybe employers re-employ everyone. Not gonna happen. But maybe Joe Biden fucking dies. That could happen.
For our audio listeners, I shook my head in response to the first two propositions and shrugged in response to the third one. Thank you for listening on Spotify to the Zero Budget Podcast. On with the show.
And so, I mean, it's just like, it is, as we've seen, it is very volatile times. I mean, some states are doing well with COVID. Some states are doing terrible with COVID. Some states are doing fine with employment. Some states are doing terrible with employment. We've seen that the southern states are doing fine with their employment, but terrible with COVID. We've seen northern states do terrible with unemployment, but good with COVID. So it's a lot. And I really hate Trump's cult of personality, because it's not even like he is a real authoritarian. He's like a baby authoritarian.
Yeah.
He won't even take the steps. Like, say one about real authoritarians, they'll actually deploy the military on city streets.
Yeah.
Trump begged for the National Guard from Virginia to be sent to D.C.
That's the thing about Trump that I think is so dangerous, is that he really seems to just be dumb.
Yeah.
Like genuinely, he seems to be like a somewhat competent businessman. But in terms of political know-how, he knows nothing. Like, he's genuinely a fucking idiot. And he'll take these steps, and then people will be like, wait, you can't do that. Like, he'll be like, hey, I'm going to deploy the military across the United States to suppress protesters. And then the Secretary of Defense is like,
you literally can't do that.
That's illegal.
Yeah.
And then he'll be like, oh, okay. I'll just send them to D.C.
Where I have, I do love how whenever Trump tries to diss, like, Northam, our governor, Northam's just like, shut up.
Yeah. And he always says, Virginia, your democracy is under attack or some shit like that. Like, Virginia, protect your Second Amendment.
Yeah,
because that's the thing that he's always fucking running after. When it's like, all right, bro, you got your crazy protesters, whatever. I don't know, man. I'm so tired.
Yeah.
I'm so tired, incredibly.
Trump stands are the worst. You know what's also the worst?
Great segue. World
so I thought we'd take a moment to talk about stands.
I want to talk about Chaz first. Because I did a bunch of reading.
Oh, you did?
Watching.
Okay.
So I want to flex on that a little bit. Hey, everybody.
I've done some moderate reading.
I did my part.
Okay.
And that is something that I guess is worth bragging about.
So, talk about Chaz.
Yeah. So, okay. Chaz, I'm going to call it CHOP because that's the name that the organizers prefer. CHOP is the Capitol Hill organized protest in Seattle. And basically, the protesters, the BLM protesters in Seattle have taken over. This is a trinket in my hand. They've taken over a few blocks.
I think it's 6.
6 blocks. Let's say it's 6. Next to Capitol Hill in Seattle. And at first it was called the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone. It's entirely community/protest run zone. They're trying to keep the police out. It is like, and the reason why it was called Autonomous Zone is because at first that's what it was described as. But since then, the protest leaders have come out and they basically said, hey, we don't want to be called that. We're not trying to secede from the United States. Seceding from the United States would defeat the goal of making the United States better. So, no, this is an organized protest. We want to fix the problems in the U.S. So a bunch of reports were coming out about this because it's kind of a big fucking deal when the community takes back an entire section of a city. And you had all sorts of mixed reactions from both sides. BLM supporters were like, holy shit, that's dope. And then the racists were like, those fucking Neanderthals are out here just running this town over. Yeah, Neanderthals.
I'd maybe respect a racist slightly more if they use the word Neanderthal.
Neanderthals.
Instead of any other word.
They've been using words like savage, thug, obviously the time-old N-word. They've been saying all sorts of stuff about these people that are fighting for their lives. Calling them like low-lives, jobless, crackheads, meth heads, things like that. It's like, okay, bro, typing on Twitter, yeah, you're really fighting the good fight there, bud. But yeah, so that whole thing happens in CHOP, and there have been like videos coming out from inside of CHOP showing that it has a bit of a more festive environment because it is entirely community run. So they've even brought like generators and like shit for like water, food. They're like some of the shops have been repurposed to like medical centers and stuff like that for the protesters. And it's still a fully functioning part of town. Like there are people that live there. There are businesses that run there. People can travel in and out with ease. They just keep out the government, essentially. So then in the past few days, news came out that there were shootings within CHOP. One a couple days ago. Well, there were two a couple days ago. I think one happened last night, if I'm not mistaken. But no,
I didn't know that.
No, a couple happened in the past couple days. We'll just leave it at that.
I didn't know a couple. I only heard of one.
No. There were three that I've heard of.
Yikes. Not shocking, but yikes.
Yeah. So the first one, cops came in with like their guns and stuff all out. Like, hey, we're here to get to the boy. And the way that EMT services work and the way that emergency services work is, in order for them to have the okay to go get the patient, the police have to give them the okay, which, again, in my opinion, is one of the ways that our policing system, that our justice system is broken. But yeah, the police have to go in and be like, hey, you guys can come now. So when they started blocking off the police from going inside, the medics could not go through. With the first shooting, I don't know the full situation of how the body was taken to the hospital, how the person was like given their medical treatment. But with the second one, the police arrived and everyone was saying, leave, they're already gone. And what had happened was the CHOP medics had already taken the body to the hospital. Like, they had already taken that person to get the services that they needed. So I thought that was kind of interesting because I think it kind of dispels a narrative that these CHOP people are like these messy, jobless thugs who, you know, they just want to do this party thing, and shooting happens and all of a sudden they need cops or something. And I don't know, it made me think like, okay, say they had gone through the cop avenue, right? The cops arrived, the shooting happened at 2:10. No, 2:19. The cops said they arrived at 2:30. Reports from the area said that they actually had arrived at 2:39, and the body cam footage from the police was blurred. So the information at the top right, where it says the time and the date and all that stuff, was blurred. Which just makes you think about that report. But even still, the cops arrived in 10 minutes of time. By the time that it took them to get there, that person was already at the hospital. In an entirely community-run zone.
Yeah. So, do we know anything about the shooters? I guess
So
in this case.
there aren't any details about any of the cases.
Hmm.
Um, we just know the details about what happened when the police got there.
Hmm.
And actually, because of that, um, the mayor of Seattle and the chief of police said that they were going to reclaim CHOP. So
Hmm.
they're going to go in
I heard
there
about that.
with all their police boys and they're going to take it back. So I'm really interested to see what's going to happen because they, if I'm not wrong, they banned some of the uh, non-lethal weapons that they could use. So
Ah,
they banned tear gas, um, and they banned a couple other things. Tear gas, chemical weapons, things like that.
crowd
Um,
control stuff.
well, yeah, general riot control stuff, but they still have other
Right.
riot control things that they can use.
Hmm.
And the chief of police has been talking about or trying to still use tear gas despite the ban because they're
Yeah,
like, hey, we got to take back this part of our city.
I'm not shocked that there are shootings in uh, Chaz Chop. Chaz Chop. I'm just going to call it that now. Uh, I mean, to my knowledge, is not a lawless zone to say the least, but they're really. I mean, like you said, it's community run. You know, you kind of just hope the community will all just be good. Unfortunately, humans are not like that. Uh,
Yeah, and I
I
mean,
mean,
especially with something like this, I'm sure you have a lot of like I'm sure you have a lot of butting heads. I mean, one of the interviews from someone who was there said 1 minute it could be very festive, and then the next there could be something going on, and then the next it could be a little dangerous. But for the most part, they maintain a fairly festive environment. And like, I would imagine if there is something going on where like there's a lot of emotions involved in something like this, it
mhm.
could get very heated. But I don't know. The only reason I don't like I mean, not the only reason, but one of the main reasons I don't like hearing reports like this is because, in the eyes of the racist, it delegitimizes the movement that much more.
Well, it kind of sounds like Occupy Wall Street all over again. It's just like different in a different place instead now. I mean, because that's what Occupy Wall Street was. They just camped outside of Wall Street and were just like, fuck the 1%. Uh, I'm not, just trying to discourage the movement at all. Uh, I like the idea personally, you know, but I wasn't, let's say, shocked when I heard some debauchery was going on. Did you ever hear about the SoundCloud rapper Raz that came in like shortly after?
Yeah,
Uh,
so he's actually a community leader.
yeah.
I've like seen like interviews and stuff of him. He's been doing community work for a long time, and he was talking about like he didn't want to come in and like be the leader, but people like looked to him as a community
Mhm.
leader. So now he is one of the organizers of CHOP.
Yeah, and then there was video surfaced of him handing out AR-15s out of his Tesla to random 18-year-olds.
I'm okay with that.
That may, well, no, I don't know if they were shot with a rifle or a handgun.
No,
So,
no, no. Okay, so CHOP also has like a security system.
oh, so
Um,
they have their own police force.
Basically, I mean, they have people walking around on the outside with walkie talkies, just
Hmm.
to like communicate, basically, and then
Yeah, that makes sense.
they have their own like security system of like if there are people that because there are gonna be people that are gonna try to come in start some shit, so they have
Hmm.
to be ready to defend themselves, and they're using the Second Amendment right that these conservatives have fought so hard for.
Hmm.
I don't see anything wrong with it's a private militia, basically.
Yeah.
Like I see no
Um,
issue with that, especially
Private militias aren't allowed anymore. Actually, private militias were never allowed. It has to be a public militia.
you know what I mean.
Yeah.
They don't have like their own private
I
army,
get it.
but you know what I mean.
That'd be pretty cool if they
Little politics boy. You're cutting out. Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Yeah, you started cutting in and out there. I'll cut that part
Yeah,
out.
okay.
What were you saying?
Okay. Yeah. No, it'd be so dope. They call themselves the Chop Militia, and like they had like a little symbol, and it was just like a butcher knife.
Yeah.
That'd be so tough.
That'd be dope.
That'd be dope as hell.
Yeah.
Like I kind of don't hate the idea of Chaz or Chop, I guess. But maybe the security force is more organized. Maybe they wore outfits. Maybe they started writing down more incidents. You know.
I mean, we also have to
generally-
realize this has been going on for what, 2 weeks?
2 weeks. 2 weeks.
You know what I mean? Like, it takes a little bit of time for a movement to, especially something like Chop, to really get off the ground. And it seems like they're entering into more of a structured environment where, okay, like they can deal with these things accordingly. But now the U.S. government is coming in.
Yeah.
So that's kind of scary because it almost makes me think that, hey, now they're all armed. They're going to fight back, in my opinion, rightfully so. It doesn't really matter what my opinion is. I mean, they're probably going to fight back.
Yeah. Which I don't know is the wisest decision.
I mean, yeah, but like it or not, it seems like that's where it's headed.
But how, to the average American, how do you try to, how do they not conflate that with just like another Confederacy? It's just a different reason, Especially if they're going to start fighting back.
That's another thing about the fucking Confederates. It's like, hey, the Confederacy stands for you can't step on me.
Yeah.
Me, the white man. But the second you step on the black man, and if the black man fights back, fuck him.
Well, I mean, we've learned, and especially us, the Confederacy was in the wrong for leaving. Hell, we learned about the nullification crisis.
Yeah, but
North Carolina was going to secede.
The Confederacy was in the wrong for leaving because they wanted slaves.
Yeah, I understand that. You understand that. However, let's talk to the average American for a second. I'm not calling them dumb, but a lot of times they don't focus nearly enough on history/politics. A lot of them are just trying to live their fucking life.
I think the Black Lives Matter and the Black Liberation Movement have so much more traction and support, more than they have possibly ever had in history. So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw much more radical forms of movement coming in the future. Much more radical than Chop.
So you're just calling for another secession of the state?
Not necessarily. Not a
didn't want to
secession.
do.
I mean, Chop. Their organizers literally said, "Hey, we're not trying to secede. This is a."
But as soon as you start fighting the government, you are in yourself trying to secede. In a sense, you're saying like you can't come into this territory. We have claimed this as ours, but we're also not trying to leave.
I mean, if the government is going to come in with riot suppression shit, it's just self-defense, really.
I mean, is it because the United States is the sovereign owner of the Chop era? I mean, Seattle itself is the sovereign owner of that Chop area.
I mean, but what gives them that sovereignty? Consent of the government?
Not necessarily. That's not how sovereignty works. That's how some political philosophers would like sovereignty to work. Unfortunately, that's not how it actually works. Really, all sovereignty you need is just a legitimate government.
Okay, but bottom line, if you don't have consent of the governed, you don't have sovereignty.
Nope, that's not how that works.
That's simply how it is. Like,
literally isn't. What are you talking about? I've studied this.
America just straight up decided, yo, fuck the government, right? If not even all, if the majority of the citizens were like, we don't like the government, we do not accept their authority, we will fight back, what is the government going to do?
Well, then the United States would be considered a failed state.
Okay.
But what would have to happen is that the citizens would have to organize their own country, basically. They would have to basically have an actual like leader.
Okay.
They would have to have a legitimate authority to challenge the United States' legitimate authority. It's kind of what happened in Venezuela. So it's the same reason why North Korea, even though they probably don't have the consent of the people, is a sovereign state. Or why the USSR was a sovereign state. Because even though, the people really didn't like the Soviets, they were considered sovereign.
But they had consent through oppression.
No. I mean, there were so many riots and revolts tried against the Soviets, especially in Eastern Europe. So when Trump says we're gonna, if you think they're gonna start fighting back, then they have.
I mean, I don't know if they will because I'm not. To be fair, I'm not educated enough.
Exactly.
Neither of us are educated enough to really be making.
I'm
any
really only going on
solid points.
I'm just.
Hey guys, Future Egypt Age is back. At this point in the recording, we had some technical difficulties. Connection started to go out. So when we came back, we went right to the tier list, but the tier list was a bit of a boring part of the podcast, so we kind of cut that out. But we left the final product up here so you can see our definitive ranking of all of the MCU movies. You cannot argue with us on this. This is how it is. And then hopefully you got a bit of a sense of what we were talking about with the chop stuff. We started to drift into some political theory things and some things that I don't know much about. Granted, Matt knows more about it than me, but both of us are a bit ignorant on the subject and probably shouldn't have been talking about it at as much of a length and making as much definitive statements as we were. But that being said, hope you enjoy the final moments of the Zero Budget Podcast, not live. On with the show.
So should we go into our final segment?
Let's go into our final segment. What have we been doing? Let's call it that.
Yeah.
And then that'll be our theme song. What have we been doing? Hey, Matt. What have we been doing? I'm so fucking tired. Oh my god. I haven't slept in almost 24 hours. Because my sleep schedule's been all out of whack. So I've been waking up at 5 p.m. So I was like, I'm going to fix it by staying up until 6 p.m. and then sleeping early pretty much for the next day. So I can start bright and early. But that means when we record the podcast, for no reason other than experimentation, I hate it here.
So anyways, what have you been doing, Juptash?
I've been playing The Last of Us, Matthew. Thank you for asking.
Yeah.
We said we were going to do a Last of Us review this week. I'm not there yet. It's a longer game than I expected. It's weird so far. I like it. No, it's not weird anymore for me. It's one of those games. It's one of those things where you have these expectations. You know what I mean? And then it curves those expectations in a very strange way. And you don't really know how to deal with it at first. And then once you sort of get the groove and you figure out how things are going to go, you start to enjoy it a lot. Kind of like in Infinity War or Endgame, when they kill off Thanos in the first 15 minutes?
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, whoa, I don't know how I feel about that. And then you sort of start to get the hang of it. Not the hang of it, but you figure out where they're going, and then you're like, okay, I like this movie. You know what I mean? It's a bold decision. So yeah, this game is filled with a lot of bold decisions. But I think I like them. I've also been watching Dear White People. I've been rewatching that. I still think it's a very top-notch show. Season 3 is less social commentary and more drama, I guess. It's more about their lives. At least from what I'm watching. And I think that's everything. I've also been trying to read some political texts. I joined a book club with our boy, with friend of the show, Sahib. We joined a book club together. What kind of texts? We joined a book club reading, reading political texts that pertain to the Black Lives Matter movement.
No.
So we read a speech. We read the Ballad or the Bullet speech from Malcolm X. And then we read a thing from W.B. Du Bois on why he won't vote. And then now we're going to read an actual book, of which I forgot the name. But I don't read anymore, so I'm excited to read.
I mean, I usually keep my reading for articles now. Okay.
Leftist.
Aren't you also a leftist?
No, bro. I'm so tired, dude. What the fuck have you been doing?
I've been playing a pretty relatively new game released by Riot Studios called Valorant. It's been consuming all of my time. It's a multiplayer game, very similar to games like Overwatch and CSGO. I think it's quite fun. I'm getting better at it, and that's why I like it. Also, guns make fun noise. They go pew pew. I mean, we're still finishing the Clone Wars. We've started season 4 out of 7. And then after that, we're gonna probably be watching some bits of Rebels, and then we're gonna go into New Hope. We have elected to skip Solo.
As you should.
Well, apparently she also already saw Solo. That's the only Star Wars film she's ever saw. At least before I introduced her to Star Wars. So, that and what else? Oh, I've been re-listening to a news commentator that I kind of stopped listening to for a while. His name is his YouTube name is Secular Talk. His real name is Kyle Klinsky. He's a generally popular, like, leftist. Very like. I don't totally agree with him on everything, but I think I kind of like that about him because he does allow me to challenge my actual worldview.
Yeah, I've been listening to Vosh,
mm-hmm.
And it's the same thing where I don't really agree with everything he says, and I don't know if I agree with his methodology of saying some of those things, but it's something to listen to, and I like it when he clowns on Ben Shapiro.
Yeah.
I think we should all make it a habit to clown on Ben Shapiro.
Yeah.
Once an hour. I don't think that's
I mean, some people got lives, once a day, I'd say.
I'll settle for once every half an hour.
What? No, that's not how this works.
Once every 15 minutes, you must tweet at Ben Shapiro.
I'm going to do that right now.
And call him a short, fake libertarian weasel boy. You know what I don't understand about Ben Shapiro?
What?
Let me turn this into a stand-up bit. You know what I don't get about Ben Shapiro?
No, I don't know what you don't get about Ben Shapiro.
Is how he can talk about how he's a libertarian, but then he sucks up to Trump's authoritarian ass.
No, that makes sense. I mean, that's like every right-wing, new media commentator, though. They're always just like, "Oh, I'm a libertarian. I'm for the people, but also let me suck Trump's cock."
They don't know what libertarian means anymore. Do I know what libertarian means? What's the point of this podcast? This is the worst episode.
It's not Stephen Blake. Alright, so should we just end it there?
There's that dead air.
Dead air.
Dead air. This is the worst episode of the podcast.
You're saying that because you're tired.
I'm so tired. I'm going to go to sleep. Thank you for listening to the Zero Budget Podcast. I have been your host, Update Singh. This has been your co-host, Matthew Hanks. Make sure to follow us on all of our social medias. Make sure to please subscribe so you can get our videos in your box. What if we just posted this as like clips?
That's what I was thinking.
Because there's nothing coherent here.
No. Well, I think because we subconsciously knew that we were like pre-recording, we would just like cut it out if it was bad.
Okay, fuck off. Bye. I don't know where that leaves the audience, but bye to the fucking zero budget cut cast.
Cut cast.